Okay, geometry. We're going to do a little introduction to inductive reasoning so you can get a sense of where we're heading tomorrow in class. I want you to look here at the images on the screen and see if you can establish a pattern. Now from here, with one block in figure 1, hard to say what sort of pattern there might be. But if I show you figure 2, you might have an idea. You might be ready to make some sort of conjecture, which is an educated guess based on given information about what the pattern might be. And if I were to show you the third image, the third figure in the pattern, you would either have a stronger sense of whether or not your conjecture was correct, or maybe you would feel the need to readjust your conjecture. But if I show you the fourth one in the pattern here, you probably have a pretty good idea what the pattern is, and maybe you'd be ready to write a rule for the pattern. You look at that and you say, well, it looks to me like I'm starting with 1 brick and then I'm adding 2 bricks on every time I move over. So that looks like the pattern 2n plus 1, or the rule for all of the odd numbers. Or perhaps you're a little bit more savvy than that and you say, well, you know what, 2n plus 1 isn't as good as 2n minus 1. That way, if we let this figure number equal n, then plug in 1 for n and you get 2 minus 1 for 1 brick, plug in 2 for n, you get 4 minus 1 for 3 bricks, plug in 3 for n, 3 times 2 is 6, minus 1 for 5 bricks. So you probably think I've got a pretty good guess about what figure 5 is going to be, and you've got a rule that will help you produce figure 5. But unfortunately, I am making the effort to trick you. I have only given you enough information to think you know the pattern, but not enough information to actually know the pattern. So maybe here you have a guess that the next one, and then after I show this one, you probably have a much better guess about what figure 7 would be. And there it is. And if there's a figure 8, what do you think figure 8 would be? At this point, you can probably say, okay, well, my initial guess, 2n minus 1, wasn't really correct, but it was close. It worked for the first 4 figures, but I didn't know then I was going to start decreasing the number. So I'm going to increase by 2 blocks, and then when I get to a certain point, I'm going to decrease by 2 blocks. And maybe that's it, or maybe there's an 8th figure. If I showed you this, would you then refine your conjecture even further? And I wouldn't necessarily expect you to write an algebra rule to go with this pattern, but I would expect you to be able to describe it verbally. It does look like we're going to increase by 2 blocks and then decrease by 2 blocks, and then maybe that pattern is going to repeat over and over and over again. Maybe if there was a figure 9 over here, it would look like this. That would certainly be my next guess. So all we're doing here with inductive reasoning is looking at the information we have and making an educated guess about what we might expect to see next based on the information that we have. And sometimes our guesses are going to be correct, and we'll have to use deductive reasoning to prove that our guesses are correct. And sometimes our guesses are not going to be correct, and we'll use counterexamples to prove that our guess was not correct and that our guess needs to be refined. So this is just meant as an introductory little teaser for inductive reasoning that we're going to do tomorrow in class.